Hi there. So if you're like me, you have probably had a little bit more time on your hands lately. And speaking of time on your hands, that's actually what I'm going to show you today is a technique for not necessarily how to keep time on your hands, but how to count when you don't want to mentally count in your head. So a lot of breathing practices ask you to do a certain number of rounds of breath, and that can be a really challenging thing to do if you are uh, trying to control your breath and think about the technique and maybe also hold an intention at the center of your mind and then count how many breaths that you have taken. So this is there's a couple of ways to do this, but it's a really simple way to keep track without really having to keep track mentally in your head. So you have these little segments of each finger. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 segments on these four fingers. And my very favorite way that I like to keep track of rounds of breath using those segments of my fingers is to count each segment as one round of breath and go around in sort of a spiral fashion on my fingers. And I'll show you a couple other ways you can do it as well. But you would take an inhale and an exhale, and then place your thumb on one of those segments of your fingers. And so to do the spiral, you start with the segment on your index finger that's closest to the palm of your hand. So I've just done one round of breath, and then I take another inhale and exhale, and I move my thumb up to the next segment. Another inhale and exhale, and up to that final segment. And then as I continue to breathe, I'm going to work my way around these segments of my fingers in a spiral until I get to this last segment on my ring finger. So I've just completed 12 rounds of breaths. So I like to do this spiral, but you could also just go up each finger and get your 12 rounds of breath, or across each finger and get your 12 rounds of breath, or any other way that makes sense to you to work your way around those segments and get your 12 rounds. So then if you were doing more than 12 rounds of breath, or less, obviously you could do less by doing a fewer amount of segments on your fingers, but if you were doing more, then you could use this other hand as well. And once you came around one time and had 12 breaths, then you could take your thumb to the other another segment of the other hand, and that is 12 rounds of breath. And then once you've gone through it again, move up that thumb, and that's 24, etc. And so you can do the math for however many times you want to take those breaths. And then obviously I don't hold my hands up here as I'm doing those the counting and the breathing techniques. I would have my hands in a comfortable position down on my lap or on a table or a surface ahead of me. So that was a technique that was taught to me by my teacher, J.J. Gormley, and I've just always loved especially the spiral technique and not having to have that one other thing to think about as I'm doing my breath work. So try it. I hope you enjoy it. If you do something other than the spiral, let me know which technique you like the best. Have a good day. Namaste.